Hello, Flute Examiner followers. Thanks for showing up for another one of our wonderful interviews. Today we have a lovely, lovely person and wonderful flutist. And notice I emphasize the person first, Noémi Györi. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's such a privilege to be here.
Well, and I'm glad this finally worked out because we had been kind of working on it for months and we crossed paths at the flute convention and kind of got the ball rolling. So glad. And so part of the trick of this is I think you're my first international interview.
Oh,
I mean,
really? That's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah. So there's a time difference we've been dealing with. Um,
Exactly.
so finding a time to make that work, it was meant to be. So first and foremost, tell us a little bit about yourself. You know what you've kind of done to get your career to where you are currently.
So I'm Noémi Györi. I'm originally from Budapest, Hungary, and I grew up in Hungary, although I lived in many different countries already during my childhood. In fact, lived a year in the US, in California, where I studied with Francis Blaisdell, and I lived a year in Japan when I was a child. And then I went back to Hungary and then studied all over. So I studied at the Liszt Academy, Vienna, the University of Performing Arts. Then I did a soloist diploma in Munich with András Adorján. And then my last studies were at the Royal Academy of Music. So I did a PhD there, which I finished in 2020. So that was long after I have finished all my studies. So I went back to do a doctorate. And I play loads of concerts. So I have many individual creative projects, recitals, chamber music concerts. I play a lot of concertos. I premiere a lot of concertos, which were dedicated to me or commissioned by me or by orchestras for me. I also teach at the Royal Northern College of Music. So I have a class of young talents there. And I do a bit of orchestral work. So there were periods in my life where I did more of that. Currently, I'm the solo flutist of the Jewish Chamber Orchestra in Munich, which is a very active but smaller group operating from Munich but traveling internationally as well. I do fewer projects with them because I have really a lot to do, but I like to keep that side of my playing
Mhm.
sort of up to date as well. And since I hold a doctorate, time to time I also write articles or do a bit of that sort of work. So
Mhm.
yeah, it's a bit of everything, but mostly lots of playing and performing.
Wonderful. And so you're very, very busy, obviously. So one of the things that I found very interesting in your bio and as I was kind of like, preparing for the interview, um, you were the first PhD from the Royal Academy of Music in London.
The first flute is to do a
First
PhD. So
flutist.
yeah, so basically it's quite it's not a very big PhD department, so it's very selective, and obviously you can apply from any discipline, including composition, conducting. So obviously all instrumentalists, also from the jazz department. For example, one of my classmates was actually the head of the jazz department of the Academy of Music. So we have jazz players as well. There are historic players as well. So it's a very wide spectrum of areas from which you can apply. So therefore, actually, they had extremely few wind players and no flutists other than me. So it's extremely competitive to get in. And yeah, it was actually quite an intense period of my
Mhm.
life when I was doing my PhD. So I had a very small child, and during my PhD studies, I had a second child, and I finished my PhD having a very, very small baby, like the second baby. And actually, being the first flutist, like just I don't know, that was like a big motivation for me many times when I was working like in the middle of the night, or when I was trying to finish up my thesis. I told myself like, all right, like it's not only a PhD, but I can say I'll be the first flutist. So that was kind of like an extra motivation for me, although it doesn't make, in that sense, it doesn't make such a big difference, but it was something that helped me through some of the difficult moments where I was really fighting with, the challenges of doing all of that.
Yeah. Yeah, because the doctoral or the terminal degrees are very much a gauntlet. There's a lot of stuff to get to the end of those to receive that very expensive piece of paper.
I think it's extremely tedious
Yeah.
at the very end, and you need so much patience. And I think it's almost like, I think sometimes I was thinking that the degree is also kind of showing that, well, this person is capable of going through a certain amount of hurdles. Like it's not even about like your intelligence, but perseverance, maybe. And
Yeah.
I think that made me think because just in general, I ask myself that those sort of questions like how much is talent worth, or how much is intelligence worth, and how much is actually perseverance and continuing to do things and not giving up and just, like just going one step at a time. And I think as I get older, I really value the going on bit. I think that that is so big, because as you follow your path, I think I think this step by step going on thing becomes a very, very major part of what you are doing. And it's less about thinking, oh, how talented am I or not, or like how intelligent am I or not. It's just that sort of like keeping the process going, keeping the learning going, keeping the reflection going, and so on and so forth
Mm.
as you kind of progress in life or in your career.
I think that's an important lesson to learn because it's really about the whole package and the time management, the perseverance and the work ethic. And it is there are so many of us uh, out there that have started doctorates who have run into walls that prevent us from finishing them. And I can't tell you how many people I've met that have just gotten close to the end and just for one reason or another, whether it's personal or they're just they lost the drive, have stopped before they've completed. So yeah,
Yeah.
it is a challenge. So tell us a little bit about your thesis and how that or what importance that has to you, or why you chose that specific topic.
So when I applied for the PhD, I obviously wanted to examine something which is extremely specific, and in a way extremely specific for me as well as a person. And I used to play with classical guitar
Mhm.
since my teen years, and I've always found it extremely challenging to play with classical guitar. So I really enjoyed playing with classical guitar, but in a way, I found it a huge challenge. And through these years, I now can express why. And I think it was a great challenge for me because playing with a guitar requires you to be an excellent chamber music partner.
Mhm.
However, the flute is so exposed as if you were playing in solo. So you can really hear every detail, because when you play with the piano, I think oftentimes, like, actually, in comparison to the guitar, when you play with a piano, or let's say with an orchestra as a solo, it's like so much is covered, like so
Yeah.
many of the details just don't, like, they just don't matter. But when you play with the guitar, like everything matters, all the details matter. It's like you can purely hear the flute, which I think is a huge task as a performer. And you're still a chamber musician. So it's not like you're playing in solo and you just have to like take care of yourself. You really constantly have to work together with the other person. That's one thing. The other thing, the guitar is really like an imperfect instrument. So the tuning of it is very delicate. So it also requires you to be very much in tune again. So like in tune with the person, really, really reacting very quickly to the changes of the tuning. So it requires a very sensitive and very precise tuning. And together with my guitarist partner, Katalin Koltai, I actually started to do transcriptions in our late teens, very early 20s. And so we started to experiment playing keyboard pieces by, mainly at the time, by Mozart and Handel, sometimes Haydn. And we created these transcriptions and we played them in concerts, and that was something that, I don't know, that just like interested us, and we had lots of fun working with those pieces because we loved those pieces, and we just like had this idea of taking it to ourselves. And then when I much later, decades later, was thinking what I would want to work on as part of my PhD. By that time, I already had worked with Katalin for like a decade and a half, or perhaps even more. So that was like a really long-standing working relationship, but also that was something really unique that has been with me for a long time. And I thought, this is an area that is worth exploring. There isn't much repertoire for these two instruments from this particular period of the Viennese classical era, from these, you know, really highly regarded composers. And it interested me what happens when we take these canonic pieces and we apply them to this medium. And so I thought, you know, that would be a really wonderful idea. And what it developed to be like, I mean, I can tell you the exact title of the thesis, but I think there were two main questions. One of my main questions was that I felt that this particular genre of flute and guitar duo was very much associated with like South American music. And so this is like, in a way, like less serious music, although I don't want to say that. I don't want to say that because I don't want to imply that Piazzolla is not serious. For example, Histoire du Tango. I think it's a really dramatic piece. But it's, let's then say that this genre is associated with certain type of music, and definitely not associated with Mozart, Haydn, and Beethoven. I think we can safely say that. And it interested me, like, can we alter the perception of a certain chamber music group? Like, can we like alter how people think about that chamber music formation, and what happens if we apply this extremely canonic repertoire to it? Like, how will people respond? And the other thing was that by kind of learning more about the existing transcriptions, I have found that the historic transcriptions, because there are historic transcriptions of keyboard works by Mozart, for example, or Haydn, those were simplifying the texts for the flute and guitar. And then the modern transcriptions, they kind of were the opposite. They almost wanted to copy every single note and prove that we can play every single note on these two instruments, so we are allowed to play this music. And I have felt that that actually both of these are wrong in a way. Like, again, I don't want to say wrong. Like, I thought it's much better to really take the music and kind of translate it to our medium. So in the title of my thesis, I called this process musical translation. And the idea was to really find, so if a certain passage just didn't work for us the way it would have worked on the keyboard, rather than just like copying the notes, we try to find solutions that would express the same thing, but on our instruments, without simplifying the text, if that makes sense. So that was the idea. And then in the thesis, I obviously outline the whole history of this formation, the existing transcriptions. I of course, talk about the specific works that we have transcribed with Catalin and which we have actually published as well by Doblinger published this in an own series. So all of the music that we have created was never translated or transcribed for the flute and guitar. We recorded these pieces as well. So we really created something completely new, and I think also very valuable for pedagogical purposes, not only performance. And then I, of course, take like a case study where I show like step by step, for example, how this kind of like musical translation worked, what were the things that caused difficulties or which were, you know, constant questions, what sort of answers we have found, what was the kind of like experimentation that we have done in our rehearsal laboratory, and, you know, that sort of stuff. And I think that's why it was really nice to do the PhD at the Royal Academy of Music, because there was a lot of like performance like practice element to it, like this kind of like practice-based research that we have generated through rehearsals, through, you know, trying out things and reflecting on it. But there was also like this incredibly intellectual bit, like I really had to write this very comprehensive thesis, but then provide a very thick artistic portfolio next to it. And I think that's very unique to this school. And I think I really learned a huge amount from doing this in the way that I had to do it at this school. Yeah.
Excellent. That it does really change your perspective or how you look at something when you have to break it down and figure out, like you said, what's working and what's not working. And I think it also gives you a different perspective as you're preparing your own performances, even outside of that category or that genre. So,
exactly.
Yeah. It
I
does.
absolutely agree.
Lots of critical thinking. So,
Yeah.
so two things. So about within your performing career, I saw, and this one tickled me because I you know, they're both wonderful, but I do tend to love that you have gotten a chance to perform with the BBC Philharmonic and the Vienna Philharmonic. And I absolutely love the BBC Philharmonic. I'm a big fan of British TV and British concerts so anyway, I had to smile quite widely when I saw that. So what was it like to play with such well-known orchestras?
So in those two orchestras, I was playing as a guest player. So in both of them, that was in my well, if I can say, my younger years. So after finishing my studies, I did a lot of like guesting in many orchestras, and I did play a lot in the Vienna State Opera alongside the musicians of the Vienna Philharmonic. And you know, I mean, it was absolutely huge. I mean, it's an unbelievable orchestra with absolutely unbelievable players, unbelievable flutists. And I think everyone playing there is just, you know, you talked about work ethics, like it's the work ethic is so high and everyone is so prepared. And in a way, it's really funny because, like, of course, I had to really prepare, but it almost felt very easy to play, in the sense that because everyone was so good, like you just knew that everything will work so well and you just have to worry about yourself. And in a very weird way, that took away from my anxiety. I think that's really interesting, that I think when you can really rely on others, it's like I noticed this with languages, for example. I think this is so interesting, and I one day, now that I mention it, I always think that one day I want to learn more about this. That I notice when I speak a foreign language, a language that I've learned, which is not my mother tongue. Whenever I speak with someone who is a native speaker or who speaks really well, I speak really well as well. And when I speak with someone who is like not speaking the language so well, or is like, I don't know, like constantly making mistakes, like I start to kind of make more mistakes. I kind like my vocabulary shrinks, and I react to the person. And it's so funny that I found in this orchestra that because everyone was playing so brilliantly, like I suddenly, like they took me with them as well, and it was like so easy for me to play well, if I can say that. That's very
Yeah.
interesting. So I found that a very interesting phenomenon. And then after that, I played with the BBC field again with as a guest, and that was very interesting as well. So different,
Mhm.
and at the time even more so different, because I think I was new to the UK at the time, and it was culturally very different.
Mhm.
um I think I was more used to this Central European type of music making. Um, I had always heard the Vienna Philharmonic growing up
Mhm.
in Budapest, so that, you know, like on TV or on radio, or even, you know, like they came to Hungary and you would like hear it on the radio, and, you know, that sort of stuff. Like, I think the style of the BBC orchestras was very new to me when I moved to the UK, even though I heard them also on recordings, but not as much as I heard, for example, Viennese orchestras. And it's interesting, like for me, it was a huge experience that actually, I think it was maybe a year and a half ago that I played as a soloist with the BBC National Orchestra of Wales, so another BBC orchestra, and that felt like a big milestone in my career to actually like play with them as a soloist. And it was also very interesting that, you know, this was many years after the time when I played in the BBC Philharmonic as a guest, and and when I played with the BBC National Orchestra Wales as a soloist, by that time, like I knew the BBC orchestra style so well, and it felt so wonderful to play with them, and so kind of like straightforward. And again, they, you know, they just lift you, and yeah, it's just incredible. Yeah, they were also very kind and friendly, and yeah, really wonderful.
Wonderful. Well, so that's a lot of some highlights of your performing career. But you're also a teacher. What with your students, flute or otherwise, is there a teaching philosophy or something that you try to instill in them while they are studying with you? You're like any perspectives on music, or what do you want them to take away after they've had a session of study with you?
Well, I think the biggest thing is to really enjoy doing music. I think I don't know. I think that what keeps me going always, that I still love to play the flute, and I think that that is the most important to always cherish, and that's the starting point. Start from there, to unpack from there, like what do you enjoy in playing the flute, and how can we go from there? And I think, well, you would have to probably ask my students. I think I'm really um what is my methodology? I think my methodology is that I really like to, I'm super serious person.
Hmm?
So I work very seriously with my students. And I think sometimes at first they are very surprised that I'm so serious, but then they really love it. Usually, I think it's so important to take another person very seriously. I think it's a big gift if you can take another person very seriously, um, because you really take on their things and you think with them in the deepest way. And that's what I try to do in my teaching. And so I really try to take that one person and really think what is the best for them and for what they want to achieve and what drives them in playing the flute, and also seeing their personality, like what kind of things would motivate them or move them or enlighten them. And I think it's very much a conversation. So I think over the years of teaching, probably I have learned at least as much from my students as they learned from me, because I think when you think with another person, when you really like want to understand where they are coming from, it requires you a lot of openness and reflection. And that actually creates a lot of creative space where you can realize a lot of things for yourself. Because obviously, like when I practice, like I'm with myself, right? So I can only always start from that point of view. And in a way that's restrictive. And I think therefore it's so nice to, you know, have that surrounding of just, you know, being in the space of other people as well. And then it's so funny that, you know, now the age gap between my students and myself has grown, because when I started teaching, I was so young. And I find that also very interesting that I think when I was younger, it was just very nice to have this feeling that we are not that much apart. And now it's so nice to have this feeling, to have a very lively connection to the next generation, and to feel like, you know, I think I have two daughters, and I know that so many people like to say things like, oh, this next generation, like they're all only on their smartphones and they're not like concentrated, or all they do is blah blah blah. But I just really find that so many of the young people are really extraordinary. They are quick, they have so much talent and wisdom and creativity. And I think that I mean, obviously there are so many types of people in any age, right? So we can't say that they are all just like that, but so many of them are like that. And I think that for us, like who are a bit older, like our task is really to take this generation very seriously and to understand where they are coming from and what they can offer. And I think they do have a lot to offer. And so that's also like something really nice, because both in my professional career as well as in my private life, I really want to be a person who is, you know, like open to older and younger people, and learn from both. And you know, I think that's something very healthy and good. Yeah.
That's great. That's great. I would have to say in my own teaching career, I've experienced the same thing. Students bring something to the table, and the mutual respect creates an open communication, and we both end up learning something in the end.
Exactly. I think
So
that's so nice. Yeah.
yeah. So and so you've mentioned this a few times, and now we're to the question I've been really looking forward to asking. So we've talked about your education, we've talked about some highlights of your career, and you've mentioned a couple times that you have two young girls. So you're a mom while doing all of this, and the fact that you had a small baby while finishing your PhD, I know how hard it was for me. I couldn't imagine having to go through that while also taking care of a small child. So what is it like? How do you find a balance being mom and the professional flutist? I know there's a lot of give and take, but what's your secret, or what do you have that you can share? Because I know quite a few people out there who are kind of in the same boat.
So, so my girls are 6 and 12 now. So they are, you know, the older one just started secondary school, which was a, you know, big transition, and she's starting to commute to places on her own, which is a big thing. And, you know, in her life, things are becoming more serious. So I think she's really transitioning to become an older child rather than a smaller child. And I think the responsibilities of a parent really change at that point. Some things become easier and some things become a lot harder, I think. So first of all, I just wanted to say that I think it's impossible to, like, whatever I say is just, you know, a personal experience. Like, I don't think it's possible to have, like, as I age, I think, okay, let me use this example. I always wanted to go to India in my life. And 2 years ago, I did go to India, and I spent there 9 days in Mumbai, and it was absolutely fantastic. And you know, I just like there was so much experience. And when I came back, I talked to someone from India, and I talked about this, like, wow, it feels like I'm taking away so much experience. And then she said, oh yeah, we have this saying that if someone goes to India for a week, they want to write a book. When someone goes to India for 2 months, they want to write a novel. When they live there for 2 years, they write a poem. When they live there their whole life, they understand that they don't understand anything about India. Okay. So it's so vast. And I think this is kind of what I would say about, being a mother and performer, that perhaps the more you know, you understand how much you don't know, how vast this whole thing is. And there is no recipe, because life brings so many unexpected challenges, things that you would have never thought of on all fronts. This can be, anything and everything. And I think you never quite know what will really get you as a challenge. I think this is like the biggest thing for me, that I would think that I'm like intelligent, so I can predict what will be hard. And I think it's just always beyond me. The challenges are things that I would have never thought of. So it's really, it's a big one. I think I have always been someone who didn't want to give up on things. I think that's where it all started. I'm a tough one. Like, if I have something in my head, I just want to do it. And I think over the years, I have dropped a lot about my expectations. So I think when I was younger, I thought, okay, I want to do this, and I want to do it perfectly, and I want to do it this way and that way. And I think over the years, I think I have this incredible feeling of wanting to do things and feeling incredibly grateful to be able to do these things. And not be like, I want to do it this way, that way, perfectly, but just be like, wow, how thankful can I be that I can perform here? Or how thankful can I be that I have a child or two? Or, you know what I mean? Like, I really should be so thankful that I can be doing this, what I'm doing now.
So less worried about the little things and more in the moment, enjoying the experience.
Yeah, and just understanding how privileged I can be that I can do this. Like, I think that is the main thing, and not looking for the outcome. And I think that also helps me to navigate all these unexpected things which happen, I think, both in professional life as well as in private life. And I think what the one step at a time theory, which I have mentioned already, I think that helped me a lot. So I think to think that, okay, like, I'm here, I can maybe do a good small step, one good small step, let's say one step that I like, something small that I can say I have done the best possible way I can do in this one moment. And if I can repeat that many times over a long period of time, that becomes something quite substantial. So I don't need to do anything extraordinary. I just need to be there and do the best possible next small step. And if I can kind of like follow that, I can accumulate quite a bit over time. And that is true both for the practicing as well as trying to manage things. So that means that I'll take any time I can to practice. I'll value any time I can to practice. Like, I'll value any small moment with my daughters and think that, that can be really valuable. And actually, oftentimes, very small things do matter a lot. It's enough for us to think that sometimes we worry about one single sentence that one teacher ever told us, right? it can
Hmm.
matter to us so much, right? That one sentence. So also in positive or negative, this kind of small things can really matter a lot. And we tend to downgrade these things in our lives. We tend to think, oh, it doesn't matter like how I did this 5 minutes, but actually it does. So I think that's how I try to work. And it's also true that I don't know, I have had so many, nights that I worked through, especially, for example, when I did the PhD or when I'm working on my creative projects now. Although I have to say that I have tried to reduce that now. I have tried to like do less of crazy night works because then there are other things like I really want to look after my health, and I know that when I did that, sometimes I did catch some stupid illnesses, and or I really overworked myself. But that's the learning process of it, when you learn like where your boundaries are. I think I also worked a lot on realizing how I need to practice for myself. I think that's a very, very big one. I think
Hmm.
we have a culture where we praise, I think where we overpraise practicing in terms of the length of it. I think we always think that when we practice a lot, that's good. And I think when you're a mom, you just don't practice a lot. It's impossible. You can't. It's incredibly difficult. And I think it's also incredibly difficult physically to practice so much over a long, long period of time, like decades and decades. And I think for these two principles, it's incredibly important to talk about the idea of how you can really, like make your practicing as compact as possible, as useful as possible, or when you have periods of time where you can really practice little, like how do you get through that period? And I think I had to do a lot of work on that individually because that wasn't a focus when I had my education. And I think that one day I'm really hoping that, it's not now in my life, but like I think one day I would like to have like, a senior flute class, senior meaning like, people really like I'm now working with younger talents. So usually like 17, 18, but like when I will be working more with a little bit older students as well, like I really want to have a large focus on this area and explore this with them. Because I think it's an important aspect of our career, whether, whatever you do, I think the amount of practicing time shrinks. And I know for a fact, because I speak to a lot of professionals, that this causes a lot of anxiety because people are not prepared to perform extremely like very high standard with a lot less practicing that they are used to in their formative years. And I think this is something, yeah, that you need to talk about, you need to experiment with already during your studies, and to prepare yourself and to understand what are the realities of navigating a life and career. Because
Hmm.
I don't think it's only children that can, um, you know, um, challenge all of that. Like it can be your own health, it can be a relative of yours that you need to take care of, or even like just buying your own home and then redecorating it. Like there are so many huge projects in life which take up a lot of energy, and you have to be able to continue performing in your career. You have to be able to continue performing in your work, and 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 be prepared to do everything that you're used to do without like renovating a whole home, or like that sort of stuff. And I think it's big, and so and it has psychological impacts as well, I think, when you're not prepared for that. And those are definitely things that I have thought a lot about in the past more than a decade, which I had to work a lot with. And as you mentioned, like we had a private conversation about this a little bit before we started this interview, that, you know, there is also a lot of evaluation. I think that's also a process of maturing, that in life, like when you come to these points, like, okay, your family member needs you, or your parents are aging and they need help, or your home needs, I don't know, this and that attention, like you kind of like learn to be like, okay, like where do I need to turn to now? And I think for me, again, a huge thing that was also very helpful, that by doing all of this kind of like evaluating and sometimes being in this role and sometimes being in that role, what helped me is that, or what I try to create is that I always told myself that, all right, like, it's so useful and good to step away from things. So when I step out of, let's say, being a flutist into being a mom, I create space. I can like not worry about that, and I can just leave that for that moment. And then vice versa, like when I step back, I can just be like, oh, great, I just need to play the flute and not be like a mom and responsible for everything for those two people. And I think that was so healthy for me. So rather than thinking I have to be the both, I'm trying to think, hey, I can just like now be a flutist, and wow, that's so good. Like, you know, whew, I can, you know, just like relax from those responsibilities for these moments. And then when I'm with the girls, I can be like, oh, how good, I don't have to worry about that run in the piece or whatever. And I think by cherishing this kind of attitude, I actually created more space to myself, which then helped me to be perhaps sometimes, when it works in a good way, more relaxed. And kind of, you know, this kind of stepping away lots of times helps to actually deal with that run. Because when you're fixated on it, sometimes it doesn't really help. And when you can just let it go and not worry about it for a little bit, when you come back to it, you're in a better space. And so I try to use this kind of complexity. Like, it's almost like I created little escape routes for myself. And I think that is very healthy to put down one package when you're dealing with another one. So, you know, when you're dealing with taking care of your parents, maybe that's not the time when you will be the best flutist of your, you know, like, and that's okay. And but still you don't have to give up, and you shouldn't, and still you can try your best. I think, I don't know, I hope that makes sense, like how I try to, you know, think. And adding to that, I think along the way, oh my God, like obviously I'm sure I have made a million mistakes. Like I'm definitely, you know, there are so many better flutists on earth than I am. And, you know, I can only just be the best mom I can be. Like I'm really trying hard, and, you know, I'm trying to do my very best, and that's my maximum. And I'm sure that you know, I make mistakes, and I'm not perfect. And yeah, it's sometimes so hard to understand that even though I try my very best, like I still can't be, you know, I can't be more than who I am. But your t-shirt says you are enough. And I try to repeat that to myself, that, you know, all I can do is try my best. And I do that. I try my best. Yes.
Well, and you're human just like the rest of us, so the perseverance and the drive help you to get through those moments when it's tough. But I think it sounds like when you've been able to compartmentalize the two lives you have, and that creates that separation, you're able to appreciate and focus on each part more fully than if you were trying to spread it between the 2.
Exactly. And I think also what I think what really helps me now is that because I have been doing this kind of lifestyle for a while, I think when you tackle one difficult situation, like one, I don't know, um, oh God, like how many times did it happen that one child got like a stomach bug right before a concerto night, right? So the all night I was like cleaning, um, vomit or whatever, and then you think, oh my God, like how can I be so unlucky? But it just, that's just life. It happens that way. And when you afterwards have played that concert, okay, fine, it wasn't ideal, it did work, I did my best, and you think, wow, I have done that, like I actually did it, I didn't give up, I did it. And then you learn that and you become stronger, and next time when something like that happens, you think, you know what, I already did something like that, and I got through it, so it will be fine, it will be okay. I need to, I just need to stay focused and go through with it. And that sort of stuff, that also helps. I think when you learn to get through a challenge, that helps you to get through another one. It teaches you that you can work with difficult situations, that you can get through difficult situations. Things get better. If your child is, I don't know, like super sensitive to something, it won't stay like that for 20 years, most probably. You'll have another problem, So, that's the nature of things. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think it's great advice, and I think it's self-reflection that we all need to do in those busy times of our lives when we think, oh my God, I can't handle this. So I think that's wonderful. And you are coming out on top regardless, and your career, you're successful, you have a beautiful family, like it's all working for you. So keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you so much.
Of course. So let's dig into one more question for a few minutes before we have to go. But so you've done a lot of, when we were preparing a little bit about like what we were going to talk about, we talked a little bit or emailed back and forth a little bit about some collaborations. And the one collaboration that really was very interesting to me is classical music, a DJ, and synths. So can you tell me a little bit about, or tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I have a lot of creative projects. A lot of my recitals center around a certain theme. I really like to find new ways of understanding classical repertoire. And so that can be many different things. So if you actually follow my Instagram or follow me on social media, I share quite a bit about these creative processes and these projects, and you can learn about them. There are many, some are with poetry, some are with designers, some are with looping and sort of like pop music. Some are with actors. I did have some things going on with dancers. That was a while ago. And then the DJ, where did that come from? So the Sun DJ. So I don't know, I do weird stuff in my non-existing free time. And one of the weird things I've done is I've come across reviews about perfumes. And it interested me. The reviews about the perfumes interested me because the concept interested me. Like, how can we write about something like music, for example, or perfumes that we like really cannot touch, or it's so abstract? Like, how would you describe like something so abstract? It always interested me. Like, how would you review music? And perfume is so similar. Like, how do you review a scent? Like, it's so hard to put it in words. And so that really interested me. And then I read those reviews and I thought, how interesting. Like, scents, they evaporate like musical notes, they just die away, but then also they have the capacity to really have a really great impact on your brain. So for example, when you smell something that you know from your childhood or from a certain time of your life, just like when you hear like a pop song that you listen to when you heard Heartbreak, like you're immediately there in that moment. And so these are so powerful things for our brain. And so then I was like, wow, that's so interesting that we have so many of those similarities. And then I got into like how like perfumery works. Like you have the chords of the, you know, the bass note, the middle note, the top note, and how does that work, and how are like perfumes designed. And they're so similar to musical thinking in a way, like and how those scents resonate depending on whether they are top note or bottom note. You know, that's really interesting. So I got into that, and then I was more and more interested in the broader thing, the scent idea, like going beyond only like perfumes and stuff. And then I started to research and talk to people, and someone said, oh, I think there is a like a scent DJ, and you should look, you know, you should look this up. And I don't know, like I was just like, what is that? And then I started to research, and I found this amazing guy called Erich Berghammer. He's originally from Vienna. I'm not sure from Vienna, but Austria, but he lives in Amsterdam, and he is working with scents that he creates like since decades and decades. And so he has done like a lot of like scent installation for like Dior or like private parties, and scent DJing. So like dispersing scent for a party, and it would change and everything. And so I got in touch with him, and I had the idea, like, what if we would create like a flute recital with him, basically writing a scent narrative to the music, like a scent story that would like change with the music. And so first of all, he was like, wow, you know, because I kind of like created an idea of like an outline of my idea, and I sent it to him, and he's like, wow, that's so interesting, but first of all I need to educate you about scents and how they work. And so I had these like several Zoom sessions where I learned about scents, and then we identified certain certain themes and scents that I find important or he finds important, and around that, like we were working for actually already several years to, you know, to create like a 1 hour recital that we feel could work very, very well. And we are going to present that for the first time actually in Hungary, in the amazing House of Music, which is a very interesting space, beautiful space. And I'm going to play some music, will be solo flute, some solo piano, and flute and piano. So it's like a 1 hour recital. And Erich has been composing the scent to this music. So people will be required to close their eyes. I'm thinking of even maybe, you know, having something to tie around the eyes to, you know, just be really being there and just experiencing everything through your senses rather than just watching or visual, just really smelling and listening. And we'll have fans, and Erich will constantly, you know, apply the scents. He has been doing this for a long time. That's really important. And he's doing everything. So we know that nothing is dangerous, nothing can cause like an allergic reaction, because he has been doing this for a long, long time. And so it's very professional with it. And yeah, and that's what's going to happen. And we will have a concert for kids, because we were very passionate about creating the same program for kids, because they don't really have the opportunity to meet, because it's a very expensive project. You know, like everything is very pure that we use. So, you know, it costs a lot of money, but we really wanted to make sure that we repeat the program for kids, because it's so important that they have an experience of, you know, of these fine things like music and this kind of very fine sense. And I'm so looking forward to this, and I really hope that just like with my other projects, I'll be able to repeat this in other parts of the world, because by then we'll have like something already built up, because obviously it took us such a long time to get there. And even for myself, I'm super interested, like what will be the impact of this on me personally as well, and to experience this. And I think, I mean, I think it's going to be really cathartic, um, uh, very unusual, and definitely a different way of trying to experience those pieces. And yeah, and I think it's just, again, one more thing. I like to try to be reflective and sensitive. I think that if we can have more of that in the world, that is something super valuable. I think we can probably all see that we lack some of that in general. And I think that having projects like this, you know, I don't know, in my mind, maybe help to create that space for people to, you know, to use more of their senses, and I don't know, rather than be just, bah, this is what I want, and be more kind of like, okay, what do I hear? What do I smell? Like, what is this? And just take the time, think with it, and then do something. I don't know. It's that those are the sort of things that interest me. And so I try to create those spaces in my own recitals and creative projects. So I really hope that that will work well. It's a huge thing for me that it's actually happening. So anyone who would like to visit Budapest and who would like to plan a trip, 7th of February is the date of this recital. So, if you want to include a flute recital in your visit, feel free to book your flights and trip for that period in 2026. But yeah, until then, there will be loads of other projects, but this one is, something that's really exciting in this season.
Well, I'd love to follow up with you about that project. And if you have, if either yourself or somebody who's in attendance would like to, write up a small article about like reviewing it about what the experience was like, get it to us and we'll publish it as a follow-up, because it's such a unique concept and unique experience. I wish that I could be there, because I think it would be, one, lovely to hear you perform, but also just the idea of eliminating the optic sense and just having to experience the ambiance through the senses that are left. By eliminating one sense, you heighten the others. So it sounds like it would be a very fun experience. So I wish I could be there, but we would love to hear a follow-up of how it went, and even if a couple people wanted to share their experiences, we can publish that so that we can do a follow-up. But and for those who are watching this interview, we'll have a bunch of links on the website for Noémi's recording projects and previously recorded projects and anything else she's doing. A link to her website, a link to her Instagram, so you can follow her. Yeah, so if anybody wants to know more about this lovely flutist and mom, by all means, go to the website and check out the links that we'll have.
Yes, and feel free to get in touch. I'm super happy to, answer any questions or anything. So
wonderful. Well, Noémi, thank you so much for joining us today. And it was such a pleasure to get to see you again and get to know you better. And I'm glad a couple months of working on this, we were able to get a time together to do this. And we'll definitely follow up and be in touch, because we look forward to following your career. And hopefully I'll see you next year at NFA as well.
Thank you. Thank you. That was so lovely to be here. And, thank you so much for, making this so relaxed and personal. It's a pleasure to talk in this way.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. And we'll see all our flute examiner people next time. Take care.